Welcome to episode, I forgot to check. I think it's 119 of Beer with Strangers. I'm your host, Tony. I'm your host, Tony Russo, and I'm joined this week, as I'm joined each week by...
Ho, 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 this year, or this week, Doug Griffith here. Welcome all, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all. And if you didn't get the prologue, we're not here next week. So for this week, we hope everybody has a nice Christmas, and if you're traveling, be safe out there. Today, we've got great weather out. It's sunny, it's beautiful, mid-50s. Although I liked it last Sunday, it was 70 degrees here.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And then it went down to 26 the next day.
it was a cold week.
And actually, it fell, I was surprised. Sunday afternoon, it fell 25 degrees in like 2.5 hours.
I think
front came through.
Something similar happened. Yeah. I guess I went to Berlin one day, and like I got out of the gym and it was cool, and then I got to my office and it was cold, and then I left my office and it was bitter. It was just like same thing. The temperature's been falling out of the sky. But we got lots of fun stuff to talk about this week. But before we get into it, the classes start in the new year.
Yeah, we got the first Saturday we have beer class, and then in 2 weeks after that, 14th, 15th, I can't remember the date. Anyway, 2 weeks after the third Saturday, we have wine class. So, and
I wrote a story this week or last week about Christmas presents, and one of the Christmas presents that I recommended was if someone's into beer, getting them a beer kit and then having them come to class to learn to make it. What I discovered to my surprise when I got here is that your Millsboro location will be open on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Which is astounding to me because I'm not doing anything on Christmas.
And we'll be open here Christmas Eve too till 4 o'clock. We are closing early,
So if you want to get out, excuse me for the scratching. If you want to get out and get here, the point is there's still time even when you're listening to it. Now, for me, I don't have very much going on. I'm going to New Jersey for the holiday, which I'm always excited about. But even more so, I think I've mentioned this on previous shows, but I'm working on a story about craft beer Boilermakers. And the idea is that rather than a regular shot in a beer, the idea is you get a decent whiskey and you get a decent beer and you sip one at a time and just enjoy them both and enjoy it, especially at this time of year. It's nice and warm. So I actually have an appointment. I'll be going to Carton Brewing, which means I don't have any excuses to not bring you back a beer. But I'll be going to Carton Brewing in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, and taking photos there and talking to him about his craft beer Boilermaker ideas. I still have about 2 weeks left before the stories due. So if you have any suggestions or if there are any beers that you'd like me to find pairings for, just give me a holler. I'm happy to do it. And that's it for me. All right, let's start. I'm looking for the stories now. I'm sorry. The top stories, we're going to start with the home brewing section, which is down at the bottom. I don't know if you got to check
a pricey piece of equipment, although less than their normal pricey piece of equipment.
All right. So what is this and what does it do?
It just checks your alcohol level. If you really want to know how much alcohol you've got in it, you can look through fermentation. As the alcohol level goes up, it means your fermentation is progressing as planned. But it's
just real quick, this is the Easy Dens. It's called an Easy Dens, or what? Like, what's the name of the piece of equipment? That's the
I think
brand.
that is the Easy Dens, but there's another one they have. It's a more pricey one that's in the $1,000s. This one's bad enough, $500 to check your alcohol level. So it's not a economical solution. A hydrometer that runs $7.
Yeah, I was about to say for a home brewer, I don't see. How does does this only improve on a hydrometer if you're trying to sell your beer to people?
No, the nice thing about this, it only needs 3 to 5 milliliters of product or beer. You got to degas it, and you have to filter it, which you can put it through cheesecloth or a coffee filter or something to filter it. But degassing is just put in a vial or something you can shake enough and forces out the CO2, pour it through the filter to make sure there's no particles floating in it, and it pulls it up inside. Somehow you take a syringe full of it and it puts it up inside the device and checks your alcohol level. So it is nice to see. You should have nothing to start with when you're doing your brew. shows you how much you have at the end. Or if you're going out and you want to check to see how much alcohols there are actually in that beer you're getting at the bar, it's a real quick test.
Yeah, it would be kind of weird to bring a hydrometer to a bar.
Yeah. But hydrometer, you need 2 or 3 ounces, whatever test put tube you're putting it in. You have to have that hydrometer float, so you need a little bit of beer. So if you're doing it every day, it uses you may use a beer bottle's worth over 4 or 5 days to test that sample. With this, you just try less than an ounce.
And the other thing is, do you have to degas beer before you put it in a hydrometer, or is that?
Usually it's not. Yes, but usually it's not terribly gassy. But yes, you should swirl it some so it doesn't, because the gas in it will attach itself to the hydrometer and it lifts the hydrometer more than what it should. So
which gives you the impression that you have a lower ABV than you think you do.
Yes.
And the other thing wanted to mention, if you're watching us on the video, you can see that
we're sipping away here.
We're enjoying some chicha, which is one of the ancient ales, and that was the other thing that I highlighted in my story, is that you can get ancient ales here Ancient Ales by Dogfish Head to do, if you want to do your own homebrew kits. They have them here.
Yes, we've got Midas Touch, Theobroma, Chicha, Polk, which is another of the South American beers, just like the Chicha is. Probably noteworthy is the original method was to chew the corn. We've got some
I've done it.
Corn or purple corn, whichever way you want to. We call blue corn, but I don't know if it's blue or purple. But anyway, you're supposed to soak it and in water a day before to soften it, and then you're supposed to chew it and spit it into a bowl, and the saliva out of your mouth acts as a enzyme to break the starches down into sugars, and then you put it in with your mash and then boil it. But we've come up with an alternative method, so you don't have to chew it.
And your alternative method is just to boil it, or
you boil it and then you mash it with other grains. So,
I see. But anyway, it's very good. It's berries or something.
Is strawberries.
Yeah.
It's called chicha with strawberries and pepperberries.
And so anyway, those are some of the things they have here if you want to do ancient ales for Christmas. And the other thing, did you get a chance to read this? So last week
a little weird.
Last week I was very, very sick, and I had to cancel the show at the last minute.
That's not what made you sick, though.
This isn't what we're about to talk about. Didn't make me sick. Just I think one of my coworkers
glow in the dark beer.
But glow in the dark beer was one story from last week that I definitely wanted to revive for this week. I think it's pretty cool. No?
It's interesting.
It's just a neat thing, and it doesn't change the flavor of the beer.
But how much beer are you going to drink in the dark?
Well, actually just for the fermentation. So when people open your closet to see you fermenting the beer.
Oh, I thought it was after fermentation too that it would continue on. But
the impression I got was it was just while it was fermenting. That takes some of the shine off it.
Yeah. But I saw the FDA. Somebody actually wanted to do it, and the FDA said, "Nope, can't do that. It's maybe toxic." But they didn't really know why.
Right. They just were scared. The FDA is one of those bodies that's always like, well, let's start with no and work our way back from there.
Yeah.
But it got approved, and it's this is a different story. It should be on the market. He'll tell you how to do it if you get
Tampa brewery is going to brew it.
Right. But if you can get this yeast, there's a guy who has kind of done this. It's part of an effort to get more people into biological sciences. And so what his idea is to kind of make it fun. So he does these kind of DNA hacks, and we'll give them to you. So if you want to make your own phosphorescent yeast, and you know how to make yeast, like our friend Michael.
But I don't see the point in it. It's just, if it's not going to glow after
I think it's just to be cool. Like you take pictures, just a fun thing. I think because the yeast is all out of the. Oh, I guess you could maybe. You know what? I don't know why you couldn't put it back in your beer after, when you.
Yeah, maybe. But I understand it came from jellyfish, and jellyfish are some kind of plankton that are in the water. I have seen some of these luminescent creatures,
right?
Although very small, when I've sailed in the bay. At nighttime, you can watch the bow wave on a sailboat, and it glistens a little bit.
And that's
from those luminescent marine creatures.
That's super cool. So anyway, so glow in the dark beer. Hopefully in the future, hopefully someone does make it so that you can pour it out of the bottle. Because I'm getting to
I thought the agitation as you pour it out of the bottle maybe would make it.
Oh, from the sailboat story. Yeah, that makes sense. Going forward, I've always had this kind of policy where I try to drink local all the time. But stuff like this is stuff you'd have to make, I think, an exception for.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's noteworthy.
Yeah, you definitely want to try a couple different things. And like when there are highly sought beers, you don't want to miss them. So if you can get your hands on glow in the dark beer, taste it, let us know how it is.
And really, if you see it glow in the dark, we'd like to know.
Yeah. And so, just stay in touch with us. And that's actually the next part of the story that I want to talk about. I came across a story this week about Kvass, which is my favorite beer that I've only had once. And I had it when Jimmy Crone was on. He was one of our first guests on Beer with Strangers. He was probably on, this is really episode 119, and he was on episode 5, 4, 6, something like that. So I want to invite you, if you're listening, to think about coming on and to reach out to me and to be on the show.
The few early shows, we did have more people on, but it was difficult to get people here and timed right. And so.
Right. And so we tried to add Skype, or we tried to add, that's why we're doing the Google Hangout now. And it just became really, really difficult to connect with people. And I felt like I was wasting people's time because I couldn't get them dialed in properly. But we did have Augie Carton on, which is why this is kind of all coming together again. I'm like, we should make a greater effort. So if you want to dial in, I don't have any objection to that, but it could be difficult. But if you can come in and hang out, we'll have a beer together and we'll talk about your homebrew or your brewery if you have a brewery. We've had Lori Clow has been on the most, I think, with the exception of Sean. Lori Clow's been on 3 or 4 times, I think, because she's around. We had the guys from RAR were on before they opened. Right. When they were still planning their brewery, they were on talking about what they wanted to do.
And Jimmy Sharp, who was a home brewer, who turned professional now at Evolution.
Yep, he's at Evo now. He started Tall Tales. Now he's doing Eric Camper was on, and he is now the brewer at Tall Tales. So there's precedent for it. If you've got the afternoon off, or if it's a good excuse to take the afternoon off, come in. We do it every Thursday. Usually as close to noon as I can manage. Sometimes it's 12:30. Sometimes it's 1. Sometimes I will wake up and my day is already going so poorly. I'll send Doug an email and say, it's going to be 1:30.
See you next week.
Yeah, or not at all. But please, if we'd like to have you on, if you have anybody that you would like to hear us interview, reach out to them and tell them to reach out to us and to get on the show, because it'd be cool if we could have people on as well.
Or if you have a topic for a show, we'd love to explore it further.
Absolutely. Ask us questions all the time. And if you go to our Google page, if you go to the Surecraft Beer YouTube page, we stream live on that. You can ask us questions live if you're interested, and we will answer them live if we can. It's very hot under this. I'm turning even redder than normal. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, I'm wearing an elf hat. I think we'll take a picture of Doug and I in our elf hats, and we'll use that for the...
I beg your pardon. I don't have an elf hat.
I'm sorry.
I've got a Santa hat.
The head elf hat. Yeah. The elf hat. So the next thing we want to talk about is Miller is the company that makes Milwaukee's Best, which some people refer to as the Beast. Lots of people refer to it as the Beast.
It's more of a beast now than what it was before.
And it's 1% more a beast. They've been promoting the fact that it was that they're kicking up to almost 7%, 6.9% ABV.
I just don't get what the point is, other than the fact that you can get drunk faster.
Well, it is really kind of a frat boy beer, and so it's a subtle hint to the frat boys, because I think what a lot of people do. What a lot of people who aren't interested in getting hammered do is they do pay attention to what the ABV is, so they know how many beers they can have, as they go along. Because if you're used to having one Budweiser, which is going to be something around 4% or change, then if you have a beer that's 8%, you want to know that it's the equivalent of 2 Budweisers. or if you have a beer that's 10%, you know, it's almost 3 Budweiser.
And a lot of times those higher ABV beers are served in smaller glasses, snifters most notably when they're
right. So you get 12 ounces instead of 16.
Right.
And so,
or you get 6 ounces instead of 12.
Right.
So, but I mean, you're getting a double alcohol beer. You're getting something that has had more ingredients. So generally, you're paying for that same price for that higher alcohol beers you would pay for a regular beer.
Right.
There's more ingredients in it.
And that's what people are starting to discover. Many people have discovered that they can take their time and drink a better beer with more alcohol over a longer period of time, but get more satisfaction from it. And
so I wonder if they've upped the price since they have to put some more ingredients of some sort in it.
I'm giving
whether it's corn or something to just boost that alcohol. It has to have some sugar.
Well, a Miller, we were talking last week because they do Miller Lite, and they do high. What do they do that's in the clear bottle?
Miller High Life.
High Life.
Yeah.
And you were saying that they use a special hop.
So it doesn't get skunky.
So I wonder if they've come up with a way to add sugar even more cheaply than corn.
Well,
or maybe a more aggressive. Maybe they're using champagne yeast instead of, you know, maybe they're changing the flavor. Well, my homework this week, I'm going to buy a 6-pack of Milwaukee's Best. And I'm going to
get a new one, not an
well,
old
I'm
one.
going to keep it until the old ones come out.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll have a tasting.
You get the old ones till the new ones come out.
Right.
Okay.
And we'll see if I can get see if I get a 5.9% and if I can get a 6.9%. And when I have them both, we'll have a Milwaukee's Best tasting and see if we can tell the difference. Just a little bar tip that I've been doing often enough. I spread the word kind of one person at a time. But I don't prefer iced glasses. They're not good for the beer, and they just kind of affect the taste of the beer. So whenever I order a beer, I always have them put it in this. The first beer is going to be in an iced glass, but the second beer, I always say, hey, use the same glass. And when I say it, the guy next to me or the girl next to me always asks, why do you want that? Are you saving the environment? I'm like, no, it's just the beer tastes better in a warm glass. And increasingly, I'm seeing other people say like, oh, no, use the same glass. So
we were at Place and See for Texas Roadhouse a couple of weeks ago. Did that?
You said that.
Don't put that in that ice glass.
Just because.
Or if you do, sometimes you say, "Give me a second one. Put that ice glass there. It'll
let
warm
it sit."
Up.
That's what I used to do when I was thinking about that the other day when Evo's Lucky 7 first came out, and you could get it in the. Well, you still can, but when I would first order it in a bottle at a restaurant, I get 2.
Yeah.
Because that's the one that you need to love.
Problem is, a lot of places with the ice glasses don't have anything but the ice glasses, but they can generally rinse it out.
Right.
Which warms it up some.
Yeah.
So.
Or like I said, I'll take it on the chin with the first one, but then the second one, I make sure that I get it warmed up. So anyway, it's interesting to see that there are different ways that a lot of the big beers are going after a lot of the smaller beers. And this is one of the new ways where it's pushing the idea of ABV in a different way from the way that the craft brewers tend to push it. And also, like, again, doing that kind of frat boy reminder that this is a good beer for getting hammered.
Right. I'm kind of assuming that this beer doesn't have any different taste than what it did before. So there's no reason other than the fact that the alcohol is higher. And you get hammered a little sooner.
Right. And also one feels like maybe if you're buying Milwaukee's Best by the 30-pack, you're not going to notice a little difference in flavor from one 30-pack to the next. So
but you may not be able to drink one more beer than you had before.
Yeah. Again, I think you drink all 30.
Yeah.
And that's that brings us to the next thing we were talking about with big beer, which is the 24/7 Wall Street came out this week with a list of America's fastest growing beer brands.
And none of them are craft.
None of them are craft
beers. Big guys.
And one of the things that I think, now this isn't the biggest beers, these are the fastest growing. And one of the things that we've been discussing is our impression is, my impression anyway, is that the reason that they're growing faster is because they're mostly AB InBev, Heineken, and Miller beers. And I think that people are putting more, I think that the bigger beers are putting more money into the smaller brands to kind of elevate them as Budweiser kind of loses its.
4 of them are 2 Mexican companies, Corona and Modelo.
Right.
So,
And well, and what's really interesting about that is Modelo owned Corona when it was owned by Grupo Modelo. And Budweiser made this big thing where to buy that. And because they wanted Corona, because they introduced Bud Light Lime, which just wasn't the same as Corona. And so they don't own Corona here in the United States. They own it in the rest of the world. But the deal they made with the Federal Trade Commission was that they would have to divest themselves because they couldn't have that monopoly in the U.S. So Modelo is owned, I think,
somebody else imports it.
Yeah.
So it's made by Budweiser in Mexico, but imported by somebody else.
I think
That's a strange
I think that it's made. It might not be made in Mexico anymore. It might be made. I think if you drink it in the U.S., it's made in the U.S. now. Same thing with Modelo. They're both owned by Constellation Brands in the U.S. and the beers are owned by Constellation. Well, Modelo is for sure. I don't know which is owned. I don't drink Corona. I'll tell you what. I will drink Modelo if that's what's on tap. Yeah. If you know, sometimes you go into places and there's not a huge selection. There's almost always a craft beer. But
so
what
you got to go out of the country to get a Mexican beer.
I believe you may not be able. Wow. Well, you can get. I think like.
Modelo.
Right. But like the Dos Equis and SOL beer. And
I think one of the beers was Dos Equis. Now
yeah, but Dos Equis is another, and that's it. I mean, we have more Mexican people.
Beers.
They're drinking more beer. That's one of the reasons it's growing. But with the rest of the beers, was Stella on there?
Yeah, and I was surprised. It's doubled in the last few years.
People have really gravitated toward that beer. I notice more and more often people ordering that as well, and it's just. I guess
it's a nice golden color. I mean, it
looks like a beer.
Right. It looks like a beer.
And I think when people hear Belgium, you know, they think they're getting not that it's not a Belgian beer, but it's not like it doesn't taste like the same kind of Belgian beer. And Heineken's the same way. People drink Heineken still, and it's always a little bit of a surprise.
But Stella, it does taste. It's a more fuller, malty flavor.
Right, but there's not the same. Like bananas or no interesting
not your
flavors.
typical Belgian.
Yeah, no, it's not what I've been used to calling.
Or maybe the ones we're having are
not real Belgians. Well, I feel like that's probably not the case. Yeah. So this is we talk a lot about pairings and flavors. And did you get a chance to look at this story?
Interesting. The pastrami beer.
Yeah. The people are making different beers from the.
But it's really not the pastrami. There's no meat.
No, it's just the spices.
Spices, and they've used some smoked grains to be reminiscent. Something like we've done with our breakfast porter.
That's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I know that you do that. You pick out the flavors that you want and then find the right combinations.
Right. So we do it too. So
yeah, and now
it's nothing new.
How do you just make the beer first, or do you like in your recipe design?
Try to think about what flavors you want and use the grains, or as we have in the breakfast porter, we use molasses because we call it a breakfast porter. I should say Sean calls it. He was the one that came up with this recipe. He's been the main recipe guy here lately, except for the ancient ales, which I've done recently. But his breakfast porter was things that you would have as things for breakfast. So it was oats and molasses, and he put the smoked grains in it, reminiscent of bacon. So we're not using bacon, but we're using something that's smoked.
Right.
What part of what's
smoky? Yeah,
part of what you get out of the bacon is the smokiness.
Right, and nobody wants anything crunchy in their beer.
Right.
So just what goes into making these beers, it's not just flavorings. A lot of time it's the actual ingredients or things that are like the actual ingredients to bring out
spices. You hit it on
spices, yeah. So anyway, I would love that's another, as I was mentioning earlier. If I could get my hands on a pastrami flavored beer, I totally would try it. I mean, I had the beer for breakfast by Dogfish Head, which was I would have a bottle.
And that supposedly had some scrapple in it that had been baked for a long time to get all the fats out of it.
Right. But and it was fine. It was a little sweet for me. That's one of those have one, but I wouldn't. And also, it was a big beer, right? Wasn't that a 10%
scrapple?
All right, and now that we're in the pairing section, we want to talk about what you're going to leave out for Santa Claus.
Oh, definitely beer.
Definitely beer.
I think there were 4 recommended beers: Kolsch, an IPA, Wee Heavy, Scotch Ale, or a milk stout. And I think if Santa were drinking, he'd like those beers.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, Kolsch is good. It's a good beer for when you have to drive, because it's usually a very...
It's a light beer. Very spritzy or fizzy. But it's I would say, you know, similar to what the Stella is, except it's an ale that's been fermented at ale temperature and then lagered for a while. So,
and now the other thing, we have two pairing stories, because the other one was with the cookies.
Yes.
And I wanted to get your opinion on again, you can see all of these stories. Usually I have them out on, often, sometimes I have them out on Wednesday afternoons, often on Wednesday evenings, occasionally on Thursday mornings. But if you subscribe to the SureCraftBeer.com RSS feed, specifically the Beer with Strangers one, you'll be able to get the show notes in advance if you want to look at these stories, so you can have your own opinions or share your own opinions. We're always happy to have them. As a matter of fact, starting next show, when people make comments on our Facebook posts about these, I'll bring them in until you guys are joining us live. But the other one was about pairing cookies, and they had some actual point blank suggestions about what to go with what cookies.
Yeah, I think I got that one here too. Well, it wasn't always cookies. Red velvet cupcakes, Imperial Brown Ale.
I love that idea, because that's going to be the Imperial Brown Ale just wash away all that sweetness right on the top.
Peppermint bark. How much is that? Just peppermint.
Yeah, you ever see it's white chocolate?
Okay. Yep. With coffee porter, that sounds good to me. And then where'd my other ones go?
There was one with sugar cookies. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sugar cookies and a session IPAs, strawberries and cream, and a Guinness 4 and extra stout, berry cheesecake with a framboise.
I don't know framboise.
Raspberry. Raspberry flavored Belgium.
The only one that didn't really do it for me was the IPA. For IPAs, I always prefer something more savory, like cheeses and...
Yeah, but they're saying a session IPA, which would be something a little lighter, not a high alcohol. So I would assume something about 5%, not the 6 or 7% norm.
Yeah, but I think that they were just trying to put in something. I'm sorry, kids. I thought I turned this off. I thought they were trying to put in something that was yellow instead of just having... Because a lot of times when we do these pairings, and I find this when I'm doing my my pairing stories, everybody always goes to the brown beers because the maltiness brings out, it cuts the sweetness. You can have something sweet, and the maltiness will kind of complement the sweetness, but then whatever hops are in the brown beer will kind of take a poke at the sweetness.
And sometimes the IPAs are just too bitter. So you have something really sweet and something bitter, it's going to be more bitter because of that sweetness you had. So you don't want something that's too bitter. Otherwise, there's too big a contrast.
Right. So generally, when you're looking for dessert beers, you want something brown.
But the main thing is, have your dessert and try 2 or 3 beers with it and see which one you like. Let us know.
Absolutely. We're always happy to share what you know with other people who are listening. And I think that brings us up to the end. Oh, sorry. Once again, we're out of time for the recipe.
Oh, that recipe of the week sounded really good.
So the recipe of the week this week is, I want to read it. It's called an aged Gouda and beer soup. And the beer that they recommended was a Belgian triple. And
they're calling for 3 pounds of Gouda in that.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really good. I have cheese issues as it is. So I actually very rarely, but I sent this one to my wife, and I'm like, I'm going to make this. Just prepare. That's going to be a very caloric soup. So it's going to be one of those days where I spend extra time at the gym so that I can make this aged Gouda and beer soup. But we do put a recipe on every week. If there are any recipes you have and you'd like to share, please send them along. We'd be happy to publish them. And I'm really, every Wednesday or Tuesday when I'm selecting the recipe, I really feel like I want to do my own cookbook, even though I'm not a cook by any stretch of the imagination. Because no one else is putting out a cookbook on beer here. So I think I may do that. That might be my next book, my next beer book, because I think I'm done with the beer history. So now I may do a beer cookbook, and we'll see how that plays out. But that's it for this week, and until the new year, next time we see you, it will be 2017.
Yes, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
And drink what you'd like and be happy over the holidays and be safe by all means.
All right. Merry Christmas, guys. Put you